world is a confusing, stressful, and often frightening place.
And we each have our own unique coping mechanisms that help us get by.
Some people will tell you that when life gives you lemons, you should make lemonade.
No, that's terrible advice. Just randomly getting free fruit is extremely suspicious. Haven't you heard of Snow White?
That's actually a really good point. It's usually not a great idea to consume anything if you're not totally sure what's in it.
If you're the type of person who copes with discomfort by making strange jokes and who enjoys losing yourself in a creepy and sometimes bloody mystery,
please join us for our dark comedy podcast, Studying Scarlet.
We alternate weekly between true crime and fictional crime, and we even take listener requests for episode topics.
So if you too have a morbid sense of humor, we'd love to welcome you into our weird, quirky, and sometimes disturbing world.
Studying Scarlet is available on your favorite podcast app, and you can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
We can't wait to meet you.
Please subscribe today.
Hey everybody, welcome to True Crime Freaks, my new podcast. I want to tell you about the different ways you can support this podcast. One is you can go to my other podcast, Lights Camera Pro, where I interview TV and film professionals about their careers. And I also do movie reviews and TV show reviews. You can check out one of my online courses. I've got an Adobe Premiere Basics course and a Secrets of How to Start a Podcast course. Those are at thinkific.com. Just search them when you go there. We also have a merch store. Just search the podcast at teespring.com and check out our hoodies, t-shirts, and mugs. I also have a children's book called Feldman Runs Away, which is on amazon.com. You can always support the podcast by going to Apple or Spotify, wherever you listen, subscribe, rate, and review. This podcast does have graphic content. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Thanks, everybody. He went after young people and he went after old people. He went after women and he went after men. He went after adults and he went after children. How did he choose the houses? How did he choose the victims? This is The Night Stalker, The Hunt for the Serial Killer, Netflix series, episode 2. Welcome to True Crime Freaks, you freaks. Let's get into another chilling episode. Here we go. Paul Skolnick, producer KNBC News, said, "There was no pattern." Zoe True, journalist, said, "The monster who was among us and hunting us. Anyone can be a victim." This is from Lorraine Rodriguez, Night Stalker survivor. John was asleep in the back bedroom, and I ended up asleep on the sofa in the living room. I woke up to a very loud noise, to which I responded very annoyed, because it's going to wake up the kids. And immediately I knew it wasn't true. There was no answer, just stillness, just fear, terrible fear. I didn't know if something was in the house, or the something was happening in our house or out of the house, and I was terrified. This is John Rodriguez, Sheriff's Deputy, LA County Jail. He said, "As a typical husband, I'm like, don't bother me. I got to get up in a couple hours and go to work. It's just a noise. Don't worry about it." She was insistent. She says, "No, I heard a window." So I went and got my gun and I walked around the house. Lorraine said, "I walked behind our dining room table, and as I walked around the table, a window that we had not opened ever because it was painted shut was open." John said it was jammed up all the way up, solid. Lorraine, "We gotta call the police." He's like, "I am the police." She's like, "I know, but we gotta call the police." John said, "Go get my flashlight," and I start shining it out the window, and that's when I see footprints down in the flower bed in the mud. Lorraine, we had water so much the night before the ground was perfectly saturated, and when he pushed down with his feet to shove that window, it just left a perfect print. John said they sent out a unit, and I showed him the footprints, and he looks at them hard and a long time, and he says, you know what? I think it's the same guy. And then Gil and a bunch of other crime lab people start coming to the house. Gil Carrillo, detective, said, I happened to be working rapiers and I got a phone call at 4:30 in the morning and there's been an attempt breaking out of Pico. So I got out to John Rodriguez's house and I was met by some young, good deputy. He found a box and covered up the footprint just in case the wind blew or anything happened. He wanted nobody to touch that thing. John Rodriguez, sheriff's deputy, said, as soon as Gil got there, I realized how serious the whole thing was. He says, look, I don't want to scare you, but you're very lucky that this guy didn't come in. What do you mean? This guy's bad. He's evil. He's done some things that, you don't want to know about. So this is very interesting. The first time I had this thought. It's good if you watch the episode several times, you notice new things. It seems as if the Night Stalker found his prey randomly to me now. Before I thought maybe he stalked his victims, knew their comings and goings, what time they went to sleep, if they were civilians or cops. It seems as if Richard got into this house, picked it randomly, and realized from a photo on the wall or a jacket on a hook that a cop lived there. And he probably would have a gun. So he fled. And the cop would be trained to fight, and he better get out of there. This wasn't going to be an easy kill. That's what I think. I think that Ramirez just randomly chose places, because if he was sitting outside watching this place, he would have seen the sheriff walk in and out of the house in his uniform with a gun. Or maybe sometimes he did that, but definitely this time he did not know that there was a man in this house with a gun. And as soon as he found out, he fled. Lorraine Rodriguez said, it was Gil Carrillo who told me the print matches. How lucky we were to have lived. Very fortunate, all of us. Gil Carrillo, detective, said, and so we got a shoe print. Didn't know what shoe print, just knew it was a shoe print. Once we found the sole pattern, we had two of our investigators go find the shoe that matches it. So he started going to random shoe stores, and he found that this footprint is from an Avia shoe. Frank Salerno, detective. That Avia shoe was a very uncommon shoe. It wasn't like at the time an Adidas or Puma or Nike. Even back then, it just started manufacturing. Okay, so I'm just gonna say this. They spend a lot of time on this Avia shoe and tracking it back to the factory and finding out that there's only a few Avia shoes and this Avia shoe could only be bought at this one place. But that's the gist of it. He wore these Avia sneakers and they thought they were gonna catch him this way, but he could always change shoes and then just get rid of this whole theory. So that's it. Frank Salerno, detective, said, if we capture this suspect and he's got the shoes on, then we have caught a killer. That's what you're doing. You're connecting various pieces of evidence. And we actually made a chart. Certain firearms were used. We've got witnesses that survived, and you could draw lines between all these and see how they all connect. So you start trying to piece all this puzzle together. When we looked at every unsolved murder in Los Angeles County, there must have been 25 or 30 cases where we're looking to see if they must be connected. And one of those cases that came up was Mabel Bell in Florence Land. Two sisters in their 80s were attacked and beaten in their hillside home in Monrovia. A gardener found them in their bedroom. 2 days later, their home had been ransacked. One of the sisters, Mabel Bell, died yesterday. The other, Florence Lang, is in the hospital in critical condition. Frank Salerno said the suspect entered through a rear door. Mabel Bell lost her life. She was taped with electrical tape, spread eagle to a 4-poster bed. Sexually assaulted and beaten to death with a hammer. Gil Carrillo said her sister Florence Lang was barely alive. Frank said there was an alarm clock that was found on the floor and there appeared to be a partial shoe print. Gil said he put his foot on the clock and yanked on the electrical cord because part of the binding of the legs had used the electrical cord from the alarm clock. Frank said, our lab was able to match that partial print to the Avia shoe print. The interesting thing is that he got comfortable after killing them and he had a snack. That's a pretty sick individual. Gil said, and this was the first time we saw the pentagram. It was written in lipstick, it was on one of the victim's legs, and he had it on a wall. Frank Salerno said, we knew what a pentagram was, but we didn't know what that meant as far as the killer. Was he trying to leave us a message? Was he into Satanism? Was it something that he believed in? Was it something he practiced? Maybe he was copycatting Charles Manson?
Satan is a stabilizing force in my life. Gives me a reason to be. It is a driving force that motivates me into doing things. I dream about the shit.
Frank Salerno, detective, said, as we're researching old cases, we become aware of another case, and it's attempted kidnapping of a young female off the street in the Northeast Division of LAPD. The victim fights the suspect and escapes, and the suspect leaves in a Toyota. And then our guy, he was driving away from the location and he committed a traffic violation. Gil Carrillo said, LAPD motor officer saw the violation and pulled him over. He did not have a driver's license, got out of the car and made him put his hands on the hood of his car as he patted him down for weapons. The officer went back to his motorcycle to get out a citation, but our suspect, as we heard on the motor officer's radio, just ran away. He took off running, and it turns out the car was stolen. So it was quite possible that they had the Night Stalker for a traffic violation and he ran away. Why the officer didn't run after him, I have no idea. But he probably thought it was just a ticket and this guy wasn't a serial killer, but they were that close to getting him. Frank Salerno said there were no days off. It was physically and mentally exhausting. Having been through it before helped a lot. He's talking about when he tracked down the Hillside Strangler. Knowing how these things play out, eventually you're in it for the long run. You got to stay down the middle. I mentioned this to Gil a number of times. Gil Carrillo said, Frank said we needed to help each other ride through the highs and pick ourselves up in the lows. These detectives are on the brink of exhaustion. They're seeing things in their house. They can't sleep. They're getting an hour of sleep here or there. They want to get this guy, and there are no breaks in a serial killer case. They will sleep when they catch him. Okay, so now I'm skipping some events here. The death of Carol Nelson. There are a couple of interviews with the victims' families, and Gil Carrillo's wife leaves him until the case is over. And there's a lot of connecting dots and theories explored, but the most interesting thing that they found was a business card for a dental office in the car that the Night Stalker had stolen. And remember, he got pulled over for the traffic violation and ran away. So Frank Salerno, detective, said, it was a dentist up in Chinatown. Gil and I go up for an interview with the dentist, and we find out that our suspect, whoever it was just in on July 3rd. And now this is about July 8th or 9th. We just missed him by 5 days because we found out about that business just now. All we could think of is, what if we'd known about this business card back then and we could have had the suspect in custody? The card was written under the name of Richard Menage. He gave some bad address. I think it was on Brannock Street, a fake address. Gil Carrillo said he was able to obtain x-rays from the doctor. I took them to a very close personal friend of mine who was a dentist. And I said, what can you tell me about these x-rays? He said, I can tell you he's going to be back. He's got an impacted tooth and it's going to be killing him pretty soon if it's not killing him already. He'll be back. So we got two of our Asian officers and put them in the waiting room, a 2-man surveillance team. We stuck them there waiting for Richard to come back for a dental appointment in the office. If he comes back, we're going to get him. Do they get him? Or does the Night Stalker get away once again? Tune in to the next episode. It's episode 3 in the 4-part series of the Night Stalker, the Netflix series. Next time. Okay, so let me just say this one thing before we sign off. As you will see throughout this series, there are several times when they got very close to the Night Stalker and they didn't get him. And it had a lot to do with police agencies not working together. They thought they were really close with these shoes. They were casing out the shoe store. There was just a lot of leads that kind of went nowhere. But you have to remember, this is 35 years ago. So, you know, they didn't have DNA. They didn't have cell phones. All of this stuff now would be much easier to find him and track him. And, you know, look at all the texts from people, and it would just be a lot easier to find this guy now. So it was harder for them back then. Not as easy as it is today. So thank you for listening, you true crime freaks. See you next time. This is Sean Ventura signing off. Hey everybody, welcome to True Crime Freaks, my new podcast. I want to tell you about the different ways you can support this podcast. One is you can go to my other podcast, Lights Camera Pro, where I interview TV and film professionals about their careers. And I also do movie reviews and TV show reviews. You can check out one of my online courses. I've got an Adobe Premiere Basics course and a Secrets of How to Start a Podcast course. Those are at thinkific.com. Just search them when you go there. We also have a merch store. Just search the podcast at teespring.com and check out our hoodies, t-shirts, and mugs. I also have a children's book called Feldman Runs Away, which is on amazon.com. You can always support the podcast by going to Apple or Spotify, wherever you listen, subscribe, rate, and review. This podcast does have graphic content. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Thanks, everybody. Thanks to Joseph McDade for the music. I will see you next time in the next chilling story on True Crime Freaks. Thanks for listening, everybody. Have a great day. I'm Sean Ventura. Take care.